Hello, I'm Corinne Worsley, and welcome to this episode of the Live on Purpose show. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how we know if we are living on purpose. How do you know if you're living a purposeful, meaningful life? Well, my take on this is that if you have to ask the question, then you're probably not. So if you've got that niggle, if you've got that doubt, if you've got that question inside you, then chances are that you are not living a purposeful, meaningful life, whatever that means for you. And that is what we are going to get into in today's episode, is talking a little bit about how we know when we're living on purpose, what are the clues, but also the fact that living on purpose and living a life of meaning is different for everybody. It's not a one size fits all, which is what often makes it so tricky to identify, because we don't have a checklist of things that we can tick off to get us to the point of living a life on purpose, or that other people have done that have created lives of purpose and meaning for them, and therefore it's going to create the same for us. It just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So many of you, if you've been following me for a little while, will know my story as to how I came to be searching for my purpose, but I will give you a brief recap, just for those of you who might not know me. So I was working in corporate, doing really, really well. I had ticked all the proverbial boxes. And even before working in corporate, I should say, I'd been a box ticker for a long time, in that I was brought up in a religious household. So there were lots of boxes to be ticked as regards whether you were doing it right or doing it wrong in that respect. And I was also a real box ticker when it came to school and achievement, following the rules to the letter, frowning on anybody who didn't follow those rules. And so I really thought, when I left school, when I left university, when I left education, that if I did all the things like you were meant to, if I behaved like I was meant to behave, and I lived cleanly and was a good girl, whatever that means, and ticked all the boxes and worked hard and strove for success, then I would feel happy and fulfilled. That would be the path to a life where I felt full up, lit up every single day, where I had the relationship of my dreams, where I had freedom and financial freedom, work that I loved, a life that I loved, and a feeling of ease and happiness and fulfillment within me. However, I got to probably around age 30, I would say. I would say it was around age 30 where the wheels started to come off, where I really started to realize that, hang on a minute, I've ticked all of these boxes, I'm earning six figures, and I'm only 30 years old. In fact, I hit that at 29. I was 28 when I got that contract that was basically a six-figure contract. And I've got the car that I always said I wanted, so that box is now ticked. I've got my own apartment. I bought my own apartment, my own flat in beautiful Chorleywood, in this picturesque location. I was traveling all over the place with my work. As I said, I was from the outside, had a very successful job, a job that you could be proud to tell people that that's what you did, and they'd be very impressed. And I was also briefly in a relationship with a guy who I was crazy about. And so from the outside, it looked like all those boxes had been ticked. But on the inside, I really just didn't feel like life didn't feel like I thought it was going to feel when I got to this place of having ticked all the boxes and got all the things. And so I started to question, and I guess really it wasn't until the beginning of 2013 when I really couldn't ignore the niggle anymore, that I did something about it. But just gradually over those few years, I really started to feel like this isn't it. There has got to be more to life than this. And it was early 2013 when I hit that point of working 19 days straight. I remember sitting at my laptop with a massive pain in my right shoulder from all of the stress and the work that I was doing, working 70 hours a week plus continuously, looking out of my window over the snow in the garden whilst I was working on my laptop. And I just had this realization that I don't even like the work that I'm doing, and yet I've devoted most of my life to cultivating this career. And so what I thought I needed was a new career, but that was just the universe's little push to push me in the direction of finding a life that was overall, that was holistically more fulfilling and more meaningful. And for me, being achievement and career driven, or the message almost needed to come to me as a, right, it's time to change career, that's going to make me happy, a new career. And so that I would then go down that path and explore all of the things that I have been exploring and that I'm still exploring on my path to leading a more fulfilling and meaningful life. So that is where I started, and that's why I say, if you are even thinking that this can't be it, there has to be more to life than this, then the probability is that you are not living the life of meaning and purpose that you were put here to live. So there's answer number one for you as regards how do you know. And yeah, another test is if you've ticked all the boxes, if you've done everything and achieved everything that you thought was going to lead you to that feeling inside, which is what we're all seeking really. This is what when we talk about living a life of purpose and meaning, it's a feeling that we are seeking. And that feeling will be something different for you than it is for me. For me, I wanted to be lit up and excited and joyful and full of ease each and every day. And I was not feeling that at all. I was far from feeling that. So whatever it is, that feeling that you're aiming for, if you've ticked all the damn boxes and that feeling still is not there, if you're way off, then you know that you're actually not living the purposeful life that you were here to live. Because our purpose, I believe, is to feel joyful each and every day, or to feel some form of positive emotion most of the time, like 80% of the time, I would say. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything in life is going to be easy and you're never going to feel any pain or suffering, because it's not realistic, and it would mean that you were basically in denial and probably quite disconnected from life if you were feeling just jubilant all day, every day, and you never felt any of like the sadness or the grief or the doubts. You know, we're all human beings, and that's how we operate. We are emotional beings that think occasionally. So I'm absolutely not saying that you need to feel this feeling all day, every day, but what I am saying is it needs to be your predominant state of being. And that again really is the next test that I would say is, how do you feel? If on a daily basis you're feeling stressed, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling constantly anxious and worried, if you just don't feel good, you don't feel content, then you're not living on purpose. You are not living the life that you were put here to live, because, as I said before, I truly believe that we were put here to live joyful lives. Ultimately, we were put here to enjoy the experience of living on this earth. I mean, we're here for such a short time, really, when we think about it, in comparison to how long the earth has been in existence and will be in existence. We're here for such a short amount of time, and the chances of us incarnating are so infinitesimally small that it makes no sense to me that we would be brought here to suffer and struggle and not enjoy our lives, not enjoy the work that we're doing, not enjoy the relationships that we're in. It just doesn't make any sense to me that that would be the reason that we are put here. And again, I will caveat that by saying, absolutely, we all have lessons to learn. I truly believe that our souls have lessons to learn when they incarnate. Getting into the woo now a little bit. But I truly believe, that our souls come here for a reason, and part of that is to learn the lessons. But if we're repeating the same patterns over and over again, and if we start to think that these feelings of discontent, unhappiness, depression even, exhaustion, if that's normal, if we start to think that's just normal, that's just the way that life is, well, I'm here to say absolutely hell no, that's not the way life is. We all have the capacity to feel joyful, to feel lit up, to feel energetic, to love ourselves and to love the lives that we're living, and that ultimately is why we're here. And if you're not therefore experiencing that most of the time, then that is a sign that you are out of alignment, that you are not living your true purpose here on this earth. So, what else do I have to share? One of the other things that I want to introduce is whether you feel you are being yourself. So that again is, if I come back to this idea that the chances of each one of us incarnating are so infinitesimally small, that for us to not be ourselves, to not be fully ourselves, makes no sense whatsoever. There is nobody else like you, and there never ever will be. Never. There never has been, and there never will be. And so why would you be brought to this earth? Why would you have been given life if it wasn't to live as fully as yourself as you possibly can? Why would you need to try and be somebody else in order to live the life of fulfillment that you were meant for? It just doesn't make logical sense to me that that would be the case. And don't get me wrong, I am still on my journey of growing into my full self, letting people see my full self, accepting my full self, and that who I am is okay and enough, and I don't need to be anybody else. And if I'm in a situation where I'm having to be somebody else in order to fit in that situation, then that's not where I'm meant to be. And that's guidance. That is something to take notice of. Like, for instance, in the corporate work that I did and I'm still doing a small amount of, I can't be my full self because that is not permitted within that corporate world. For me to be irreverent and swear when I want to and be opinionated and be a bit of a free spirit and be creative and not structured, that just does not work in the corporate environment at all, because I'm not following the rules. So I have to adapt and morph into something that feels less comfortable for me than when I'm doing this, where I have complete control. This is my platform. I can be who I want. Nobody's going to tell me off for it. And I know that in so doing, I'm going to be able to communicate my message to other people effectively, and that I'm going to, step by step, create what I was put here to create, and also grow in the way that I was put here to grow, learn the lessons that I was put here to learn. I don't want to be somewhere where the lesson I'm learning is to be less of myself. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So, are you being fully yourself? If the answer is no, in whatever way that looks like for you, then you're not living on purpose. You are not living your full purpose here on earth. It really is quite as simple as that. So there's some work to do to go away and look at, okay, where am I not being my full self and why am I not being my full self? And I think that's another episode that I will cover, is why does this happen? Why do we not just grow up and live as our fullest selves? Why do we feel the need to hide and feel the need to adapt? What's going on there? So let's park that, and we'll come to that in another episode. So yeah, if you're not being your full self, then that is another clue that you're not living the life of purpose and meaning that you were brought here to live. So if you've been asking the question, is this really it? Is this all there is? And along with that, you've got this sense that you're holding back, that you're suppressing part of yourself, or that you've got certain issues that are preventing you from being the true you, then that's something to have a look at. Is, okay, what do I need to change in order to start living more authentically, in order to start showing up and showing the world who I really am? And it's in doing that, it's in being our true selves, that the opportunities that are meant for us will appear, that the relationships that are meant for us will appear, and that we will feel in alignment. We can't feel in alignment when we're denying who we truly are. So that's another area for you to take a look at. Something else that I would like to introduce to you is, are you growing? Are you evolving? Or are you stagnating? Are you staying still and stuck? So this is something that I have learned on my entrepreneurial journey, is that the growth that I have experienced, the learnings about myself that I have experienced over the past couple of years, I never ever could have got from being in a job and just going to the 9 to 5, doing the commute. I fully believe, I know I would never have learned quite so much about myself had I not gone on this journey. And also I know that the things that I'm learning about myself are the things that are going to enable me to help other people on the same journey. So have a look at where you are now compared to where you were, say, 5 years ago. Have you evolved? Have you grown? Have you learnt anything new about yourself, about life? Are you expanding or are you contracting? Again, this is going to be different for each person, what it means to expand and what it means to contract. But for me, I really feel continually, every single day, I'm stepping more and more into the fullest expression of who I am here, that I am expanding all the time. I am becoming more open. I am raising my standards for myself and for my life. And that feels like the right path for me. Again, expanding and contracting will feel very different for you, but I remember looking at people that I knew who were, not even 30 yet and were already talking about contracting their life so that when they got older or when they came to retirement, that they'd have their mortgage paid off and etc., which there's nothing inherently wrong with. But what that did mean is that they were closing themselves off from the opportunities that life might bring them, from growth. They were already contracting as if they were getting ready for their death when they hadn't even lived their life yet, which made no sense to me, because we're not here to die, we're here to live. So have a look at your growth. Are there areas that you want to learn more in? Are there areas that you are finding you still have difficulty with in your life, and that are areas for growth for you? And so you've still got some lessons to be learned, some work to be done. Are there people that you want to learn from? So if you're not growing, then again, I would also suggest that you're not living a purposeful life, because if we don't grow, we die. Again, I believe that our purpose here is to evolve, to continually evolve, to learn, to do new things, to become better, to become more of who we can be. So have a look at whether you're growing or not. And then also we can take a look at every single area of our life. Really, if there's even just one area out of whack, it means we're not living on purpose, which you might think sounds a little bit extreme, but in my own experience, and this is what the whole Live on Purpose movement is really about. It's about not leaving any stones unturned, not saying, oh, that area of life just isn't for me, or that just area of life just doesn't work for me. Well, then it's because there's some growth that still needs to go on there, and some investigating. There's a stone that needs to be looked under. So don't look at your wheel of life, which is what I use when I first start working with my clients. Don't look at your wheel of life and think, oh, it doesn't matter about those areas, they're not for me. Actually, what we're aiming for is to have a wheel that rolls nicely along, that is round. So quite often when I work with my clients, and I'm sure mine would still be wonky at this point as well, it's a continual work in progress. You would mark on the wheel where you think you're at out of 10 in each area of life, join the dots, and most of us have a horrifically wonky wheel. And so that tells us that we're not living fully aligned with our true selves, which is ultimately what our purpose here is, I think, is to live as the fullest expression of who we are. And so we are continually going to have work to do. But if you feel like you're ignoring some of those areas for fear that you're going to be disappointed, you're never going to be able to figure them out, then you're not living on purpose. If you're in the process of working on all of these things, then that is more of a purposeful, meaningful existence, because you are working towards living as the fullest expression of who you are. So again, have a look at that wheel of life and all the different areas of life, and what would be ideal for you. And I'll actually attach a copy of the Wheel of Life that I use with my clients in the show notes and below the video if you're watching this on YouTube, so that you can do that for yourself. Have a look at that wheel. And one of the things that I would be really interested to see on that wheel is your relationships and your friendships. So how are they? Do you feel like the people that you're surrounded by are your tribe, that they are like-minded, that you have fulfilling relationships? So do you feel like you're on the edge, on the outside all the time? I know that before I stepped into this world of coaching, I really did feel like I was on the outside all the time in corporate. I was the odd one out. I was this weirdo who was massively into her fitness, and who just did not live life like everybody else. I didn't want to go out and get wasted. I had no desire to be a part of the corporate culture. And I just couldn't relate to people, most people. There were a few gems that I connected with whilst I was in corporate, but considering how long I was there are not that many people that I'm still connected with. Certainly not unless they have gone on their own journey of self-discovery. So I can honestly say that stepping out of that into the coaching world, the personal development world, is where I have found people where I'm really aligned with them as regards how I think and how I want my life to be. So have a look at your tribe, the people around you, and whether you feel like you fit or whether you feel like you're an outsider. And it could well be that that's a clue to the fact that you're not surrounded by people who are really part of your tribe. And so it's a sign that you're not actually on your path. You're not on, we're all on our path all the time. This is something that I should include here. We are all on our path all the time. It's just that you may be being redirected by the pure and simple fact that the people in your life, you just don't feel like you connect with them. So it's a clue, and all of these things that I'm talking about today are clues to you getting on that path of moving towards living as the fullest expression of who you are. So something else for you to think about. And what I want to highlight as well, which I hope I have already, is that life purpose is not just about career. So this is something as well for you to think about, is sitting down maybe and writing out what does living a purposeful and meaningful life mean for you. I've told you what I think it is, which is thriving in every single area of life that there is, for me, and knowing that I am doing meaningful work and making a difference in people's lives. But for you, life purpose might be very, very different. It might look completely different than it does for me. So an interesting exercise to do, or two interesting exercises to do, could be one, to go away and write out, what does it look like for me to live a purposeful, meaningful life? What is that? And if you're struggling with that, another exercise to try is to think about your last day, or even when you're gone, and to think about what you would want the people left behind to say about you, to say about the life that you lived and the person that you were and how you approached life. Do you want to be remembered for your creativity? Do you want to be remembered for inspiring people? Do you want to be remembered as someone who is deeply loving and caring? Do you want to be remembered as somebody who grew a massive, massive empire that helped lots of people? Do you want to be remembered as someone who made people laugh, or someone who brought people joy through performing? How is it that you want to be remembered? And that is also going to give you a clue about how you want to really live your life, what living a purposeful life is for you. So it's an interesting exercise to try, and maybe it'll give you some insights. So what else? What else is there when it comes to figuring out your life purpose? I think we've covered quite a lot of ground here. So what I would like to share with you now really is, how do I move forward if I've really, from listening to this episode, discovered, bugger, I really don't think I'm living the meaningful life that I want to live, which you probably knew already. As I said at the beginning of this show, actually the clue is, if you're asking the question, then you're probably not living the purposeful life that you want to be living. So what can we do about that? And again, I think this is something I'll get into more detail in other episodes. But first of all, get curious. So as I said, just start to examine each area of your life. Don't be afraid to start asking questions and getting curious and thinking about what else there might be out there for you. Maybe do the Wheel of Life exercise. Get curious about, what would a purposeful, meaningful life be like for me? How do I want my days to be? How do I want my weeks to be? How do I want to feel every day in my life? What kind of relationships do I want to have? What kind of work do I want to be doing? How much money do I want to have? How much abundance do I want to have in my life? How much love do I want to have and do I want to give? What kind of adventures do I want to be going on? So get really curious about what that purposeful, meaningful life will look like for you, and also allow yourself to get in touch with your desires. This is something I was talking about yesterday. It's that our desires are not random. They've been given to us for a reason. Like my desire to do this work and to bring this message to you, it's not random. And I tried to pretend it was random, and like I'd been given this message by accident, like it had gone to the wrong address or something. It had gone to the wrong human. And in trying to do that, in ignoring it and pretending that I wasn't the right person for it, I created misery in my life, quite frankly. there were a couple of years there that were really highly, deeply unpleasant, and where all kinds of shit got stirred up. And so ultimately, I kind of had no choice. Like, this desire is not going away. It just stays there. It doesn't matter what happens. Nothing gives me the desire to go back and do the corporate work I was doing before, and there isn't anything else that I'm being called to do. And okay, so I'm going to take that step. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to step out and see what happens when I trust that this desire was given to me for a reason. So get in touch, allow yourself to get in touch with your desires, to recognize they're not random, that they were given to you for a reason, and that reason is because they're going to lead you to live a more purposeful and meaningful life. So that's the second part. So you're getting curious, you're getting in touch with your desires, and then again, come back to this wheel of life exercise. Have a look at the areas of your life that are most out of whack, the ones that really need some attention, the ones where you feel least fulfilled. And I'd say pick a maximum of 3, and then pick one thing that you're going to do in each of those areas of life that is going to bring you a step closer, even a pigeon step closer to the life that you want to be living. I think quite often we get overwhelmed with this life purpose question because we feel like we've got to figure it all out before we can take a step, but it doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. It works the other way around. We have to start taking the steps in order to figure stuff out. So have a think about what are the areas where you really, really feel you want to make a change, you want things to be different, and what would the first tiny step be in making that change? And when I say tiny, I really do mean tiny. So if you're not 90% confident that you can achieve whatever it is that you're setting yourself to do in that particular area of life, then you need to make it easier. And this is something that I learned from the personal training arena, which is about setting yourself these achievable goals so that you can start to build up self-confidence and trust, self-trust, especially if, a bit like me, you've been almost letting yourself down for many years by setting goals and not achieving them because you've been holding yourself back and doubting whether you could do it. So start with something small and something achievable, and I would start with a maximum of 3 things at any one time. Again, if you're anything like me, you may think you can change 11 million things all in one go, but likelihood is that's not going to work. So pick maximum of 3 things that you're going to change, you're going to work on in the areas of life that are most important to you, and maybe get an accountability buddy if that works for you. I don't particularly, doesn't bother me. I need to be accountable to myself. That works for me. Maybe start a tracker. So what does work for me is tracking things. So I have a calendar on my desk here where I can put a little star every time I've done my workout, every time I've done my yoga. I can put my weight and my body fat on there, which is something that I'm tracking at the moment. That works for me way better than having to be accountable to somebody else, because my inner rebel kicks in and I just want to say, like, F you, you're not the boss of me, and it just doesn't work for me. So find a way that is going to work for you to make that happen, make that commitment to yourself, because really it's yourself that you want to start to trust and that you want to have the deepest relationship with that you can. And I think the final thing that I'm going to leave you with today is don't get caught up in having to figure out the whole path, your purpose for the rest of your life right now before you take action, before you make any changes. Really, living a purposeful life is about taking the next right step and trusting that it's leading us in the direction of our desires, of our dreams coming to life, leading us in the direction of us living as the fullest expression of who we are. So don't think that if it's, say, a career change, that the career change you're choosing now is it forever. You can never change again. You've got to get it spot on perfect. Take it from a serial career changer. You can change your mind again, and you probably will. But just choose what feels like the right thing now. And again, in relationship, choose what feels like the right thing now. When it comes to your health and fitness, choose what feels like the right thing now. Get in touch with your inner guide that is so wise and always knows what the best next step is for you, and use that to align yourself with the purpose and meaning that you have been seeking in your life. Because likelihood is, if you're asking the question, how do I know if I'm living my purpose, that you're looking outside of yourself for something outside of you to fix this thing. So you're maybe looking for your career to make you happy. You're maybe looking for your friendships to make you happy. You're maybe looking for your love life to make you happy, or to have more money, and that's going to make you happy and feel like you're living a life of purpose. And that's not the case. It starts internally. And that's probably the very first step, actually, of all of this, is do whatever you can to get to know your higher self, your inner guide again, if you've lost touch with them. Because honestly, our guides have been there since we were little, and we just somehow lose touch with that guide as we go through life, because it's not really seen as the acceptable way to live. I just followed my intuition. That's why I chose that path. People will look at you like, but what about the logic? What about the pros and cons? Those can be helpful, but ultimately, really, it's about getting in touch with our intuition and feeling what is the next right move. And all of this is about feeling, knowing that you're living a purposeful meaning, when you will know whether you are or not. So I hope that this episode has been of value to you, that it's been useful. I would love to hear if it has. Drop me a note in the comments to let me know if you've had any aha moments or insights, and also let me know if there are any other topics that you would like me to cover, things you would like me to talk about on this show. It's pretty open. I can cover whatever I want, so I would love to hear from you. What is going to be helpful for you? What's going to serve you most in living on purpose? So, wishing you all well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye for now.